This is the frame for a simple tender I'm making for my Romulus Loco. It's a ride-on tender, and it's made from basic materials. It's nothing special. It's one I made similar to a previous Romulus I had. It's just made out of box section, 25mm box section. Simple, welded together. The main bearers there are made out of I think what did I say it was, it's 50mm angle, welded together there because it wasn't long enough. There were some spare pieces I had, and one of them was it was just a bit too short, but I've welded that together and that's okay. It's bolted together, simple buffer beams, but I say the box section is bolted. It's just temporary at the moment. Proper bolts go in. Same on the rear beam. The wheels I had spare. I've had these for quite a few years with the axles, and they fit just nice. Very simple. As I mentioned, the wheels are spare ones I've had many years. Axle boxes are made of steel, milled out. The horn guides are just 25mm box, again welded to the main frame. Bronze bushes and very powerful springs, which I use in my previous Romulus, and they work quite well. Very simple, no problem. It's bolted together here. Angles are welded to the outer box section, enable it to be bolted to the actual frame. If need be, these can be removed. And this will be connected to the engine by a drawbar and a pin. Simple rods hold the axle boxes in. The only thing it needs doing really is the wheels cleaning up and possibly lightening slightly with some holes maybe, or milled out. They're quite heavy. I'll try and keep the weight down as much as possible. The tender body then will fit on top of the frames, will be bolted on. This tender body, which I had made because I have no facilities for bending up large sheets of steel, I had this made by a local company, sheet metal company. An excellent job they did of it as well. It's nicely welded, lovely welded plate, and they've even folded the edge. Nicely folded, there's no sharp edges. Lovely job, and everything's true. Beautiful, at very, very reasonable cost. Saved me a lot of heartache. The previous tender I built on my previous Romulus, I had that also made by a local company, but on that tender I had flared edges, which on this one I have not. I decided not to bother with the flares, but lovely job.
Now I've already fixed one piece of angle onto the base of the tender, and the next two pieces, which will go on the side sheets. Then a piece of steel will be cut to form the bulkhead. I don't know whether it's going to be a toolbox or a storage, or I don't know really. It could possibly be used to house a small compressor at some later date, and be useful for air braking. It's only temporarily bolted at the moment. These bolts will be shortened, although they'll never be seen once the bulkhead is in place. The engine does have side tanks, so there's really no need for a water tank. on this tender. Now this is one of the other pieces of angle which will be fixed to the side sheet, and the same will be on the opposite side. They'll be fixed with countersink screws. These will be countersink on the outside and nutted on the inside, and the countersinks will then be filled prior to painting. Now it was here I had a small problem. My intention originally was to have a piece of angle across the top to form the top section of the bulkhead frame, and the idea was to slit the ends of the angle and bend them over each end so that it would fit between the tender body. But I struggled here and I could not get the exact fit. After a couple of tries, I gave it up, and what I decided to do was to just weld a small flat piece on the end of the angle and use that that way, and that worked out quite well. It was easy then to just drill through the tender side sheet into the piece I'd just welded onto the end of the angle, and likewise on the other side, and then just bolt the top part then to the bulkhead frame, and this also acted as a stay in the tender body. Now I've got two small pieces of steel cut, and these are going to be welded to the end of the angle, and that will form the top part of the bulkhead frame. I found it easier this way. And here we see the piece which is welded. Not the best of welding, but nobody's going to see this once it's in place, and much easier now to fit between the tender side sheets. Now it's just a matter of drilling all the pieces of angle and then bolting them to the side of the tender body. As I mentioned, this also acts as a kind of a stay, really. The whole bulkhead frame acts as a stay, and it makes the tender body more rigid. And now just drilling through the angles through into the tender body, and these can be bolted down. What I shall do is then countersink the outside of the side sheets, and then nuts on the inside. As I said before, the countersinks will be then filled before painting. The rear angle of the bulkhead frame has been attached to the back end of the tender, and I've countersunk for countersink screws, and these will be filled in with filler prior to painting, as I mentioned before. Everything's more or less lined up. The angle's been milled, and that's ready for fitting now to the side sheets, and that's the next job. Now everything is temporarily bolted together just to see how it fits. There's a countersink screws in the rear which will be done on the side panel. At this point, I was going to put screws into all this plate, this bulkhead plate, but I decided I would spot weld it instead, because I didn't fancy messing about with a load of screws, and it really wasn't necessary. And also, if it's all welded together, it'd be easier to take the complete panel out if need be, instead of having to do loads of screws. So that was the next job to do. Everything lined up okay, so that's what I did next. Well, that's the spot welding bit done. Not the neatest, but it does what I need. It holds it in place, and it's really better doing this, I think, than putting a load of screws in. And also with it being one piece now, it does make it easier to put into the tender body, and also makes it easier if I need to take it out again. Now another small problem I encountered, which isn't often really with angle iron, but it was slightly out of square, whether it was due to the welding or what, I don't know, but I needed to just clamp down on the milling machine and skim one side to bring the angle back square. I suppose I could have left it, but I liked it a bit more accurate than that. Well, it don't look too bad, doesn't that? It certainly made it a bit easier, just spot welding. It made it a little bit neater as well, no screw heads showing or anything. It's all in one piece now, it's easily enough to lift it in and out. And if I need to reposition it any time, I can easily do that. Highly unlikely, but plenty of room there for any modifications I need or might need to do in the future. It was really mainly used just as a compartment to keep all my firing irons and cloths and usual bits and pieces what you carry around with you on a Loco. Now I've cut a piece of steel out for the top of the toolbox, the rear compartment, and I've actually machined one edge on the miller. And what I decided to do was to machine the other edges to make them nice and square, and then I'll cut out a section for the access into the toolbox. Now I've just lined it up with my scriber, just using the old method of using the pins on the scribing block, which these are running along the edge of the T-slot groove. Although you must make sure your T-slot grooves have no bumps and lumps, otherwise you'll not get a proper reading. But just a quick and easy way of lining up a scribe line prior to milling. Well, I'm now milling this other edge of the plate. Just put the auto feed on and let the miller do its job. It's I probably could have filed it really, but I find this easy setup and an interesting little job. Just makes a change. Well, that's the top plate fitted now. Just a tiny bit of filing on the edge at the corners to make it fit. If there's any gaps left, I'll just fill them when I come around to painting it. I just need now to cut out the rectangular section there for the access to the compartment, and then sort out a piece of steel for the lid. Now I do intend to install a seat, and the method I'm going to use is to install two small angles at either side of the tender body with two small holes drilled in them. The rear of the seat base will rest on this portion here, and there'll be two pins underneath the seat which will locate into the two angles on either side of the tender body, and these will lock into place when in use, and it will also form a cross stay which will strengthen the tender walls when the seat's installed. Well, I'm just now drilling the top plate, which has already been marked out and drilled, and I'm using these as a guide, so just to get in the correct place on the angles. Well, I've now drilled all the holes on the angles for the cover. I'm actually tapping them 3/16 BSF because I have quite a large stock of BSF screws, and they're all countersink. So when I've finished tapping these, I shall countersink the holes and then use the 3/16 BSF countersink socket head screws. and when that's done I shall take off the plate, cut out the rectangular section for access into the compartment, and then fit the lid. I'm just using one of these small pin chucks to tap out the 3/16 BSF hole. Very handy are these. And now you can see I've cut out the top portion of the plate there for access to the interior, and I've cut another piece of steel here which will form the lid. I just need a couple of hinges now. Now I've been looking at a couple of commercial hinges, small ones, which I thought might do, but when I look at them, they don't look right. So I'm going to make my own hinges. I think that will look a little bit better. I suppose it's been a bit picky, really, but I mean, after all, it's only a lid for a compartment. But the commercial hinges looked a bit out of place, so we'll see. Now this is where I've countersunk the side of the tender there to take the 3/16 BSF screws which I mentioned, which I've got quite a large stock of. So I might as well make use of them, and these will be all filled prior to painting, so they'll not be seen. Well, this is part of the hinge assembly which I've made up. As I mentioned, I didn't like the commercial ones; they didn't look just right. So I just made these. They didn't take 2 minutes really. These ought to be finished riveted. This one of them's already riveted on there, but the other ones to be punched through and flattened out, and then will be file flush. There, that'll do the job. There we see the hinges temporary put together with a bit of wire going through. I shan't be using slotted head screws as can be seen there. I shall replace them with the hexagon head. Sorry for the annoying flickering. It's some new lights I've just put in. I must get them sorted out. Well, that's the top of the bulkhead finished. The door's all done. A simple little catch there will stop things rattling about. The next job I'm going to tackle is something I'm not looking forward to, and that's upholstering a seat. It's something I've never ever done before, but I'll have a go and see how it turns out. Well, I hope you found this of interest, and thanks again for watching.